Please share with us why you are the best candidate to represent the state of Louisiana in the United States Senate.
Well, thank you for having me first. My name, once again, is Jamar Montgomery, and I'm running for the United States Senate. The reason why I'm the best candidate to represent Louisiana is because I'm boots on the ground and I'm connected with the struggles of the people of Louisiana. I'm authentic. I'm a businessman. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm an engineer. And my experience has all been with helping the people of Louisiana. So as a business owner that has lost, that suffered damage in the last hailstorm that we had in 2018, I know how important it is to get government assistance whenever we have disasters and natural disasters. I understand the importance of how we can improve our economy by having well-trained workers and better educated workers so that we can have a better economy and a growing economy. I'm the best person because I have experiences all over the state. I've lived in Baton Rouge, currently I live in Shreveport, and I've been living in Shreveport for the last 2 years. My experience and my connection is what makes me the best person to represent Louisiana in the United States Senate. Particularly, I also have experience in DC in lobbying and also working for a think tank called New America in doing research, policy research. So understanding how Washington works and understanding how Louisiana works, and also what the people and businesses and community of Louisiana needs. Before I started law school, I went to college. I went to college here to get educated here. And I'm sorry, one of my workers just, one of my workers was trying to get my attention. But I interacted with the people all across Louisiana when I went to college. Being that I received my Juris Doctorate and I also received my MBA from Southern University here in Louisiana. So not only was I educated here in Louisiana, but I built a business and I've built my life here in Louisiana. And I understand the struggles and also the challenges, and also I see the opportunities and future that Louisiana can have. So when you have a representative of the United States Senate, you want somebody that has all-round experience and can communicate with various different types of people in order to effectively represent them.
Please summarize for us your top 3 priorities and how you can affect change in those areas.
Absolutely. My number 1 priority is ending juvenile incarceration. People are willing to spend their last dollar, their last dime, their last penny on their children. And whenever children are incarcerated, it not only affects that child, but it also affects the families. So the goal is to prevent our children from even being in the juvenile justice system. Whether that means that we need more mentorship programs, more job training programs, and other opportunities for the children to express their talents, express their gifts, instead of expressing them in situations that are detrimental to their health and detrimental to their future and detrimental to their safety. By ending juvenile incarceration, what we can do is now have a better society that instead of our resources going to criminal justice, our resources are going to economic development and helping our children become better citizens of society. My second priority is ending juvenile incarceration, not ending juvenile incarceration, but making sure that we have pre-K, universal pre-K for our children. If we start early, then we're able to plan for the long term and give our children better futures. So universal pre-K is number 2. Number 3 is ensuring that we have better disaster preparedness and resources and training for when we have natural disasters. It seems as if that every few years that we have a major natural disaster that causes billions of dollars, if not in damage, but in billions of dollars in recovery efforts. We just saw with Hurricane Laura and how devastated that Lake Charles has been, that not only did we have to deal with the storm, but then there was also a chemical spill. So now people are without water and without electricity. So if we as a state do not have the resources and the disaster preparedness that's necessary, then we're forced to spend even more money cleaning up and also more money rebuilding. than if we already had the resources in place that dealt with housing, that dealt with infrastructure, and dealt with preparedness.
What are the biggest threats to our regional economy, and what role do you believe Congress has in helping us respond to those threats?
The biggest threats to our regional economy is the concentration of industry and not sharing the opportunity among all citizens. So if there are other industries that we could be involved in, such as green energy, we see what's going on with our environment. So we have hydroelectric power that we could be tapping into, but we're not tapping into it. We have the mighty Mississippi River, we have the Red River that we could be tapping for hydroelectric power that creates a new industry and also creates new jobs. So the biggest threat that we have right now, I would say, is we are not innovating in Louisiana. We are utilizing the same ideas and same industries and not expanding into high growth opportunities such as high-tech manufacturing, green energy, and high-tech manufacturing, green energy, IT services, and healthcare. We have not modernized many of our industries, and as a result, people are leaving our state to go look for other opportunities. So it's good enough for us to be educated here, but many people decide to leave Louisiana because of the lack of opportunities. But how can we have the opportunities if we don't have good education? So because we do not have the best education system in America, how can we have a good economy? How can we have solid businesses? How can we have solid workers if we do not train our workers? We have to be self-starters. We have to be self-starters. And then if our education is not empowering us to be self-starters and to be innovative, then we're in trouble. And we're in the same position that we're in. We see that that Louisiana ranks towards the last, if not 48th in education. Well, it follows that we're 48th or 49th in our economy and in the opportunity. So by making sure that we have a solid education system that trains our workers and an industry that can support those workers, we put ourselves in a much better position. Congress has a role. Congress definitely has a role, because we see in other countries that other countries have focused on specific industries and specific areas and now are global leaders. They were global players, but global leaders. We know that India is a global leader in the IT industry. So for Congress, we have to think more nationally, and we also have to think more globally. And us as a state, we have to think nationally and more globally to make sure that we have what we need as a state. So by making sure that we have the education to have a better educated and better trained workforce, we can have a better economy. And if we have an economy that is innovative and supports innovative businesses and different industries and burgeoning and high growth industries, then we can provide those high quality opportunities to our workers and to our children.
In your opinion, what are the key industries in the Shreveport-Bossier region today, and where do you believe we should be positioning ourselves for the future?
That goes back to my original statement that in the Shreveport-Bossier area, healthcare and tourism are two of the greatest. Well, tourism was our gambling industry, but healthcare. There's a lot of sick people here in Shreveport. There's a lot of sick people in Louisiana. Once again, I think that if we prepare our children for the healthcare industry, we prepare better nurses, we prepare better doctors, have more doctors, we have more prenatal care, people who are involved in prenatal care, we'll be in a much better position. In addition, once again, going back to high growth industries, and not just industries that require degrees, but skilled labor. So even if we didn't know how important it was to have electricians until our power went out. We didn't know how important it was to have plumbers until our plumbing started backing up. So if we have more trade programs that encourage workers and people who are interested in becoming entrepreneurs, then we can have a even stronger economy. We talk about economic development, the necessary education and training and mentorship that is required to have successful businesses. We know that within 2 years, about 40% of all businesses fail. And if you get out of that 2-year mark, you can get on autopilot. If you can get your business sustaining after about 2 years, you can make it to year 5. Well, a lot of businesses, especially in lower income neighborhoods, we don't invest in those neighborhoods because we don't see that there's going to be a great return on investment in those neighborhoods. However, we see liquor stores that are very profitable. We see pawn shops that are very profitable. So if we redirect our mindset towards those communities and start empowering those communities to provide for themselves and create businesses that help the infrastructure of those neighborhoods, we can now have a much better economy and a higher quality economy here in Shreveport.
What is your view of the current American healthcare landscape, and what congressional action do you believe is necessary to improve it?
I think COVID-19 has really revealed a lot of the deficiencies in our American healthcare system. We couldn't even protect our nurses. We couldn't even protect our doctors. People were afraid to go to the hospital because of COVID-19. I had something as simple as a mask. Simple as a mask. You couldn't even get a mask. Our country couldn't even provide masks for the citizens when this virus hit. That's a problem. I have a friend, my grandfather goes to dialysis, and I have a friend that's whose immune system is compromised, and I worry for them every day because we realized we didn't have enough bleach, we didn't have enough sanitizer, we didn't have enough masks just to protect people. So it's saying that, all right, well, if people have to go to a hospital in order to go get health care, well, people are afraid of going to hospitals. So that means that we need to have more clinical care so that we're not filling up our hospitals, and we can save those resources for the hospitals when we need them. But having better clinics and empowering our doctors and our nurse practitioners to be able to open up practices to meet the healthcare needs of the community and of the state of Louisiana. So Congress has a major role in that. People shouldn't have to worry about going bankrupt for trying to pay for health care, for trying to pay for what they need. And also, if we did better education about preventative care, then we wouldn't have to worry about now paying for the healthcare mistakes that people made when they were younger. So we don't educate our children that by drinking all these sodas and drinking these high sugary drinks, that how that's going to affect your kidneys when you turn 40 and when you turn 50. There are young people in those dialysis clinics. And also, we need to go back to producing for our country instead of trying to receive from other countries. We looked at what happened with China. We had to negotiate with China for our own medicine. That doesn't make any sense at all. Excuse my passion, but I have had people who I've known who have died as a result of COVID-19. I have people who have, I caught COVID-19 in early July. And I was so afraid because I was worried that my grandfather may catch it because I work with this man every day. So for somebody that was personally affected by COVID-19, I look at the deficiencies of our healthcare system, and I want to do something about it. And Congress definitely has a role. And the fact is that our current Congress does not empathize and realize how the American people are hurting.
A number of our significant community assets, such as the Cyber Innovation Center, Barstow Air Force Base, Red River, and I-49, I-20 depend on federal support. How would you support these initiatives while in the Senate?
We're talking about investments in the future and investments in the economy. Barksdale Air Force Base is a major employer here in the Shreveport-Bossier community. They're supported by the defense budget. The Cyber Innovation Center, as well, is trying to build the infrastructure for IT, for IT technology and cyber technology, so that we can build that base. Our neighbor Dallas, many of leaders in the IT community are based out in Dallas. So now, how do we build the companies that are required? How do we build the companies that are required to help introduce this? We talk about how great our country is, but we can't even provide the jobs for our students. You can't go into the store and get what you need because you don't know where to go. So the companies don't want to come to Louisiana because they don't know where to find our talent. So now, if we look at the Cyber Innovation Center, we look at I-20, and we look at the Barksdale Air Force Base, what we're talking about is making sure that they have the resources that they need. I want to pull in those leaders from those different organizations and find out what it is that they need. What are their challenges? Yes, we can always provide, we can always provide money. We can always provide money. But what are the real resources and connections and partnerships that we can build to become stronger together? A lot of times we operate within silos. I'm a former federal employee. I used to work for the Department of Defense. So I understand just how important it is to have the funding that we needed. I was part of in 2013, when they had the first federal furlough. I was affected by that because of funding gaps. So I understand just how important, how critical making sure that these organizations, our infrastructure is well funded. But even better, making sure that we don't operate in silos, that we have better partnerships, not only with different organizations, but with other states. What happens in Iowa affects the people in Delaware. What happens to the people in Delaware affects the people in Louisiana. The type of senators that we elect in California determines what kind of policies and resources that we're going to have available here in Louisiana. We work together, but we need to help the people respond and learn how to respond to opportunities. And if we don't make that information available to them, then we're not doing it. We're not helping them. So yes, we have I-220 and I-49, but are we building up that skill, that workforce that we can now use in other places?
Our area has an abundance of oil and gas resources. At the same time, renewable energy development is expanding across the globe. What role do you believe Congress and the Senate have in helping our region address both of these opportunities?
I think we've seen what has happened when we have a heavy reliance on oil and gas, particularly because oil and gas is an international market. What happens on the international market affects us here locally in Louisiana. And when oil prices were slashed because of the negotiations with OPEC, when we saw that oil prices were slashed, it hurt the fracking industry. Many companies went bankrupt. The cost of production became too expensive, and there was no profit. They were taking losses, so they went under. These companies went under. So it's showing that when we have a reliance on just one industry, how detrimental that can be to our economy. So by focusing on green energy, we have hydroelectric, we have geothermal. The same drilling that we do for looking for oil is similar to the same drilling that we can do for geothermal energy. We also have solar. We also have wind. We have all these different power sources that are available that we are not utilizing. Think about it in these kinds of terms. We have floods. And we have no way of capturing that water and capturing the energy of that water. So whenever we have floods, the power gets knocked out, and we got to get rid of the water, but we're not capturing the energy of the water to help us get the energy that we need when the power gets knocked out. Once again, disaster preparedness and resources, and thinking innovatively about how we utilize these technologies, and also the secondary and tertiary benefits that we get as a result of using these technologies. Congress has a major role. And as somebody that lived next to one of the top 5 largest chemical plants in America, oil and chemical plants in America, right next door to Southern University in Baton Rouge, the federal government has a major role in making sure that emission standards are being met, that pollution standards are being met, that the Clean Water Act is being followed, because the executives that are polluting the air, they don't live in those neighborhoods. They're not affected by when there's gaseous leaks. They're not affected by that. But it's the students that live at Southern University, that live on Southern University's campus, like I did when I was attending Southern University, that are affected by it. So the federal government has a major role. Business has a major role. And if we continue to only rely on one industry, we're going to continue to get the same results that we've been getting. That is, people leaving the state because there aren't opportunities, and 2, industry that is subject to what happens internationally, and which is a market that we do not necessarily dominate in, because when we look at OPEC, we've seen when they cut prices what it has done to our industry here in America.
Congress has recently passed nearly $5 trillion in stimulus relief to support businesses and individuals during the pandemic. How do you believe Congress should approach addressing these costs over the long term?
I think that small businesses should have received more of the stimulus package. When you stimulate small businesses, you allow them to grow into larger businesses. And we know that a company cannot grow unless it has employees. Well, when you're able to grow as a small business, and you're able to grow because you have the money that you need to retain and train and also hire better employees, your business grows. If your business grows, the economy grows and the tax base grows. The fact is that we have small businesses being taxed at higher rates than billion-dollar corporations. So if we want to do something about what we're going to have, how we're going to deal with the stimulus over the long term, we have to think about what we're doing with our tax code. Herman Cain had a great idea of the 999 tax plan, of a flat tax. If I, as a business owner, have an idea and can plan for what my taxes are going to be, then I'm in a much better position to plan and to expand. But if we give all the tax breaks to billion-dollar corporations, what happens to the small businesses? The small businesses aren't the small businesses who are supporting their families and supporting the families of others. What happens to them? All the burden of paying for America and all of our services and all of our education is shouldered on our backs and shouldered on our employees' backs. So we need to be making sure that we look out for the small business owners. And the billion-dollar corporations are able to lobby, but who lobbies for the small businesses? Who lobbies for the law offices? Who lobbies for the plumbers? Who lobbies for the electricians? So if we're going to do something long-term about this stimulus, then we need to make sure that we recognize small business is the roots of the great tree of America.
It appears that partisanship is growing more deeply entrenched in Washington, D.C., and citizens are growing more frustrated with the political process. What will you do to help change that and still remain effective for the state of Louisiana?
That's the reason why I ran independent, why I'm running independent. I wanted people to be able to see me for who I was, not see me through the lens of, oh, he's a Democrat, oh, he's a Republican. I wanted people to be able to see me. And so when we're able to see people and see individuals for who they are instead of who they are because of a party, we're able to get things done. We're all affected. We all want our children to be better educated. We all want better opportunities for our businesses. We all want better opportunities when it comes to employment. That's what we all want. It doesn't matter if you're Democrat or Republican. The fact is that it has turned into a club. It is literally turned into a club, and it is not representative of the people. What does being a Democrat have to do with your granny being on dialysis, or your grandfather being on dialysis, or your sister having asthma? If you're low income, it doesn't matter if you're black, if you're white, if you're Democrat or Republican. If you don't have the money and you need health care, you risk dying. You risk dying. What does a party have to do with that? We have to get back to the roots of representing Americans, or representing Louisiana, and not because they belong to a certain party or they belong to a certain club. That's why I'm running independent. That's why it was so important for me to run independent, because you can be a Democrat and be a business owner. You could be a Republican and be a business owner. You could be Democratic and be poor. You could be Republican and be poor. But what has that particular party, what has that particular party done for you individually? Or is it that the candidates belong to the parties, and now the parties are just taking credit for what the candidates do? So I'm sick and tired of it. I'm sick and tired of the partisanship. I'm willing to work with anybody and everybody who wants to have a better America and a better future for Louisiana. I don't care about what party that you belong to. If you want to work towards the best of Louisiana, that's going to put us in the best place long term, that's going to help us be innovative and move us from the bottom, I want to work 100% with you. And those are the people that I want to reach out with, and those are the people that I want to work with. That's what I'm excited about working with.
The year 2020 has been a challenging one for our nation, with unprecedented levels of healthcare risk, economic disruption, and social unrest. What is your perspective on these issues, and what role do you believe Congress should play in addressing them?
Whenever you have inequality, whenever you have inequality or inequities, it creates imbalance. And whenever you have imbalance in a dynamic system, it creates instability. And what we're seeing right now is a result of years and years of systemic inequality and systemic inequity. Prime example, the amount of stimulus that was given to billion-dollar corporations versus the amount of stimulus that made it to everyday American citizens. We see that contrast right there. Now people are seeing that in a span of 3 months, that $450 billion in new wealth was created for the billionaires, but there are people that are getting evicted out of their apartments and out of their homes, that are worried about where their next meal is going to come from, if they're going to have enough money to feed their children, to clothe their children. And then we have school coming back up. The billion-dollar corporations aren't worried about anything. The small businesses are worried to death. Are worried to death. The mother and son and the fathers are worried to death. So my thing is that Congress should be representative of the people, not of wealthy and rich corporations. We have not been going by the Constitution. Point blank period. We have not been going by the Constitution. We have ignored the Constitution, and we espouse to have equality and to be the greatest country in the world, but we're not great at exercising equality. Social unrest is the result of inequities and inequalities. And so if we want to stop the unrest, then we need to address the inequalities and inequities. Congress should be representative of the people, not representative of power. If the people are having issues with their government, then their government should be responsive to them. And if the people are too lazy to hold their government accountable, then we keep seeing the unrest. We're not educated on how our government works. We're not educated on how to be involved in our government. And then when our representatives get in there, they make rules that make it difficult for us to get them out when they're not doing what we ask them to do. That's a major issue. That's a major issue. So Congress has a major role, has a very specific role in putting forth legislation that is reflective of the will of the people. And if the will of the people is not being represented, then it shows that the American people have lost control of their government. So we talk about Democrat, we talk about Republican, we talk about red, we talk about blue. I'm sorry, I see that you got the stop on there.
This will be your final question and will include your final remarks. Is there anything else you would like to tell us about yourself that we might not have covered?
Absolutely. Well, I want people to know about my background. I want people to know about my background. So I started college at the age of 10. I started taking college classes at the age of 10. And then I started college full-time at the age of 14. I attended California State University, Los Angeles, and received my bachelor's in mechanical engineering at the age of 19. I'm the youngest weapons systems engineer in the United States Navy's history, and I'm the youngest weapons systems engineer in the Department of Defense's history. I worked for United States Navy and the Department of Defense for just under 4 years. I started working there at 19. As a weapons systems engineer for destroyers and cruisers, for a weapon system that's part of the Aegis combat system on destroyers and cruisers. I did that for just under 4 years. After spending almost 5 years working for the United States Navy, I went to law school. I came to Southern University Law Center and received my law degree from Southern University Law Center. While I was there, I also received an MBA in finance from Southern University. I left Southern University, graduated from Southern University in 2016 and in 2018, and moved here to Shreveport, Louisiana, and became a practicing attorney, where I'm a defense attorney for children and families who have gotten in trouble. I was also a political science professor at Southern University, Shreveport. So my background is very diverse. I also run a business here where I'm involved in reconditioned housing. That was part of my job while I was in law school, was climbing underneath houses and fixing plumbing and fixing the electrical. And right now I'm remodeling my office to make sure that I have a place of business where we can conduct business and where my clients feel comfortable and where people feel comfortable with handling the most delicate of their affairs. And as a United States Senator, I bring that same dedication, I bring that same commitment, and I bring that same expertise and background to all the decisions that I make.